Hi everyone. I wanted to make a video real quick just to kind of explain why I made this channel and to give an overview of my testimony and how God found me and what it has done for me and how it's changed my life. So I'm not going to start all the way from the beginning of my childhood, but basically that's where everything framed my outlook on life and fueled my future addictions by self-medicating. So a lot of it did start from that. Just to give a maybe brief overview, I came from a broken family. I came from an addicted mother who actually, through substance abuse, became disabled. And that was very stressful as a child, being a caretaker, and that all led to self-medicating. So I want to talk about that and how God found me and delivered me from substance abuse to getting involved in a cult. After God found me, getting involved in a cult, and how all of that played out into fueling my anxiety disorder, which I haven't completely figured out if the anxiety disorder is something I was born with. Although looking back at my history, I have had anxiety since I was a child. I just didn't recognize it when I was a child, of course. And through most of my adult life, I didn't recognize it. I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. So through my relationship with God and coming out of the cult and realizing that my anxiety my addictions were fueled by my anxiety. It was kind of like a circle, an endless circle that just kept going around and around. One caused the other. You know, my addictions fueled my anxiety, and then my anxiety fueled my addictions. So it was like a never-ending circle, basically. So I'm going to try not to make this video too long, because I know sometimes if they get too long, it's kind of just everything gets lost. But I am going to do another video about the cult, specifically getting involved in a cult. I might mention it a little bit here, but it's kind of a long story how I got involved and then subsequently got out of the cult. But how God found me and how I found faith in Christ through my anxiety disorder and substances, and through some really, really life-changing events in my life. My life became unmanageable. Just everything converged. I was in my 30s, and I had been kind of searching a little bit, not for God necessarily, just for the truth, whatever I thought the truth was. So I was kind of dabbling in conspiracies too. Like, as a matter of fact, it was after 9/11. That's kind of what woke me up. Like, 9/11 happened, and I had always been in this, America bubble, I guess. The USA, we're safe here. You live here that long, and you don't ever really realize what goes on in other countries and how good you really have it here until something really bad happens, and it makes you question, like, what's going on in the world. So that was really what first kind of made me think that things were not so happy, I guess you could say, or so good. So I was kind of dabbling in that. I had an alcohol problem, but I was highly functional alcoholic. So I had a good job. I didn't drink every day. I was mostly like a weekend warrior. So I thought it was okay. I thought, hey, everybody drinks on the weekends, So I never really recognized it as a problem, although I did have other things that came along with that. Like, one thing I noticed that when I drank, I was always losing stuff. I was always losing my keys, or I was losing stuff that I was always, my wallet, just stuff like that you think happens to everybody, but it doesn't happen to everybody. It happens to you because you're a drunk. So Anyway, I, at the time, I wasn't married, and I had gotten into a really, really dysfunctional relationship with somebody that was, I don't know how to describe it. He wasn't abusive, but he was just not a good person, I guess. And I let him take it. He was an advantage taker. I had a good job. He was a loser. I mean, I hate to call people losers because I don't think there really is anybody that's a loser. I just think people get themselves into really bad circumstances. So, but he was like that. He had really got himself into some horrible circumstances in life. And I saw that and I ignored it, I ignored it. I had no self-esteem. I was very insecure. I had been through a string of bad relationships in California and had just come back, and I had saved a lot of money. I had a really good job in California, so I saved some money and bought a house here in Florida. Anyway, to make a long story short, alcohol was a part of our lives, and then he introduced some drugs into the relationship. I was not a drug user per se, but I experimented a little bit here and there. So he did bring some drugs into the relationship, and I did experiment a few times with him, but then I started to see it getting more out of control with him, and I kind of put the kibosh on it and didn't want it in my house or around my house. And anyway, so that relationship, I had some money saved, and long story short, I don't want to get into the whole relationship thing. It went really horrible. I was stupid. I put money into a business with this person that was unreliable, and it ended up he ended up basically getting back with his ex-girlfriend and trying to steal the business that I started with all of my money because he had no money. So long story short, he took advantage of me, and out of spite, I just tanked the business and filed for bankruptcy because I didn't want to give the business to him and his ex-girlfriend, who treated him like utter crap the whole time that they were. I mean, she threatened him to put him in jail over. He had he had a child. He had a son, and she threatened to put him in jail and all kinds of stuff. And then he gets with her, lies to me about it, and it was just really a bad situation. And it was my own fault. I was stupid and I was insecure, and I just made horrible drunk person decisions. So after that, I spiraled into severe PTSD. I'll say CPTSD. I didn't know that's what it was, but I was going to the hospital with anxiety attacks. I couldn't sleep, and then that just fueled the alcohol addiction even more. I got to the point where I could barely even hold down a job, and I was drinking in the bathroom. I would take little airplane bottles with me. I wouldn't sleep for like days, and so I was drinking as medication. Alcohol was my meds, so to speak. So anyway, it got really, really bad. Then I, through that, trying to think back, started it got to the point where I did end up getting another pretty good job, and it got to the point where I sought psychological help. And then through the psychological help, it made it even worse, because I was like, okay, the people that I sought the psychological help were worse off than I was. One of them was like, smelled like cigarettes, and was, it was horrible. It was a horrible experience. Another lady was handing me her medications out of her purse, and then all she talked about was her ex-husband to me. So she's sitting there telling me how great the medication that she was on, handing it to me, and then talking my ear off about all her relationships. That was my psychological help. Okay. So I was thinking to myself, is this my help? Like, if this is my help, I'm in trouble. Okay. Because these people are crazy. All right. And I may be crazy, but they're crazier than me. And so if this is my help, I'm in deep doo-doo, basically. So after that, I went to God. Now, I gone to church as a child. So I knew who Jesus was. I knew about him, but I didn't know him. I didn't know him personally. I knew about him. So I just remember praying to God and saying, God, if you are real, I need you. I need to know that you're real. I have nowhere else to go. I have nowhere else to go. So if you're real, I don't care what the truth is. I don't care if the truth is an ugly truth. I don't care what it is. Just tell me whatever the truth is. And that's what I'll believe. So I said that prayer. I don't know how long after that prayer it was. I didn't know to take account of the days. But through that whole process, I told you I was looking at conspiracies and looking into different things that were going on in the world. I got into the kind of the conspiracy realm, I'll say. And I was even listening to some Christians. And there was one particular Christian that I was listening to. I wouldn't recommend him now. His name was Scott Johnson, because he's kind of off the deep end. But anyway, I was listening to him, and he had a video that said the real gospel or something like that. So I listened to it, and it was the gospel. And it was about how Jesus paid for our sins, and it was all him. So he took care of it, and that we were saved by grace through our faith and not by works. Okay? So it wasn't like being a good person saves you, but Jesus' sacrifice is what saves you. So it just kind of opened my eyes, and I was like, wow, really? It made me just feel great. I was like, wow, Jesus took care of it. I don't have anything to worry about. If he took care of it, then I'm good, I'm really, really good. And all of a sudden, I don't even know if it was the same day. Could have been the next day. Could have been 2 days. I don't know. I don't even know if in that moment I was talking to God. I probably was. But I just got this overwhelming feeling of presence. I mean, God was in the room with me. I could feel his presence. It was overwhelming. I was like, oh my gosh, God, you're here, And then all of a sudden, it was like I had this connection, and the floodgates opened of information. All of a sudden, all this biblical truth over the course of a day. I mean, I couldn't stop crying. Biblical truth just started flooding in like a download, like a computer download. And I suddenly knew things I didn't know before. It was like I just knew them. It wasn't like a voice or anything like that. It was like suddenly I just knew that I knew that I knew. It was amazing. And I cried, and I cried. My husband thought I was nuts. And the urge to drink, all of a sudden it vanished. All of a sudden I just knew that drinking, I was an alcoholic, and drinking wasn't good for me, and I had something better. I had something better than alcohol. I knew that. And honestly, the desire to drink just vanished from me. And that was in May of 2009, and I haven't had a drop to drink since. So I've never been drunk since all that time, and I can be around it, I can look at it, and nothing. It doesn't even appeal to me whatsoever. So, which leads me to, I was listening to that person, Scott Johnson, and he's way into the conspiracy thing, and he's a little on the negative side. Like I said, I don't listen to him anymore. But that did, his video helped and got me the gospel that I needed to hear at that moment, and God used it. So God uses people. He uses everyone, and he can use anyone. So there's that part of it, but that also led me into the cult that I was in. It was the Independent Fundamental Baptist King James Only movement, which he preached. Scott Johnson was into that line. So because I was listening to him, and because that's how God spoke to me at the time, and I thought that was the truth, and those were my people. That's what I thought. So I got into an IFB church, and I'm not going to say it was all bad. Some of the people were really nice, and that they loved the Lord. but I am going to do a separate video about that being a cult, and it is a cult. And so like I said, I will do another video about that and how God brought me through that, and how God's grace is awesome, and how he brought me out of that. So I'll talk about that later. But anyway, thanks for listening, and I hope you all having a good day. Bye.